Thank you so much, Karen. While Brandy is sharing her screen, I'll start with introductions. My name's Marika McCloskey. But like Karen said, for the fellow Dutchies in the room, I'm also still Marike. I just happen to live in California now. At LinkedIn, I lead what we call our foundations research team. It's one of our 3 research teams. And my team looks across our whole ecosystem of products. So everything LinkedIn does, making sure that it's a better experience for more users. And there's 3 pillars on my team. I have a horizontal research team, think things like growth, trust, equity. I also have a UX measurement team that we just established this year, looking at how do we define quality. And the last pillar is our research programs. It's a lot of rapid research programs, but also things like our research repository, which is why I am so excited to get to talk to you about what we've done here. I'm joined by my colleague, Brandy, who has played and continues to play an instrumental part in this initiative. So true collaboration between our research team and our research ops team. She's going to introduce herself a little bit later. Because we just can't wait to show you what we have built and how we got here. I'm actually going to just jump right in and show you the power of our research repository because it's powered by AI. So Brandy, this next one is a video. We call our research repository Insights Hub. I'm going to tell you all about how this is set up. I just want you to see how it works and what it does. As you can see here, the person searching it typed in a question, what research do we have? You can type in any topic, any question. And Brandy, do you mind pausing it for a sec? Pausing the video? Yes. Actually, play it again and we'll pause it. I want to show some stuff at the end. I know it goes so fast. So play it again. And then where it kind of shows all, actually let it play because it'll be fun to see. So at the bottom, you can type in any question you have. It summarizes research from across a whole, any data source you tell it to. And this at the end, I kind of wanted to just pause that for a second. If we can, I know it's so hard. That's okay. We'll talk about it more. At the end, it shows you a summary. It gives you all the references, and I want to get back to that in a bit. So I wanted to make sure you saw that it references where it shows up. I'm sure you have a million questions after seeing this, but we're going to talk at you for a little bit, hopefully answer some of the questions on how this works, how it gets set up. Please add your questions to the chat. Karen's going to help us monitor Q&A later too. If you go to the next slide, Brandy, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how this works, how we set this up, how it works, what this does. And then Brandy's going to tell you a little bit about how we got here, what use cases we're solving for today with this. It doesn't do everything well, because I'm going to wrap us up with sort of what our next steps are and a lot of the challenges that we're facing today and where we're headed with this. Amazing. So our repository is built on Glean. I cannot take credit for all the amazingness that is Glean. It's a knowledge management tool that we use across the company at LinkedIn. Think of it, it really has replaced our intranet. So you can it has a conversational UI interface. You can also just search it. It also pushes content. I can log in. It's like my browser homepage when I show up at work in the morning. It tells me things that I might be interested in, want to know. And one of the things that's amazing is that we're both a global company, but we just have such wide variety of work that's happening across the different lines. And we have information in so many different places. So some information's in Google Drive and the Google products. We have information in SharePoint. We have a lot of teams use Confluence to store information. And one of the amazing things that Glean does is let you search across all of it. Also lets you search across Slack channels, and it knows the ones you have access to. So it'll show me, I'll be like, I know I had this conversation with someone. What was it? And it tells me exactly where I had that conversation and where to find it. Everyone at the company gets access to Glean. We had a repository. Brandy will talk to you about what we had before this. One of the amazing things, if you click Brandy, it'll show an overlay. One of the things you can do in Glean is create a custom app. No code app. I mean, you have to sort of understand how general apps work, but it's amazing. You can tell it, tell it exactly how you want it to, what you wanted to search, how you wanted to present information. And that is our repository. So our repository is basically a custom Glean app. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how that fits together. I won't get super technical, but Brandy can answer all your questions in the Q&A afterwards. Actually go ahead, because I want to show you the structure. It's missing this one. Okay. The box on the right is the information that we have told this custom Glean app and how we want the information to get presented back at people. And so that's why I wanted you in the video to kind of see how it's like providing references at the end, but we specifically tell it how to act. So we say we want you, if a question is asked a certain way, like interpret it this way, ask more questions, but also one was like super important to me. And as you can imagine, in thinking about like where our information goes and where it travels, we want people not just to get, it's amazing if they can get their answer from a repository like this, but we also want them to know where it came from, especially if you want to look up more. Like we really want this to sort of start like an inquiry for our stakeholders, like, oh, I want to know what we know about this thing, and maybe you want to know more, maybe you want to know who did that research. And so we've specifically told it to provide a reference. So it provides like a little footnote, and then you can get to the original research document. Also great to just be able to like gut check what it's telling you. I'm still a little skeptical about AI, and so it's nice to be able to be like, oh, let me just also go find the like original source code. Just coding the output isn't enough though, because if we just said, here's how we want you to present the information, it would search everything at LinkedIn. We have like amazing teams that do amazing work, but specifically for our repository, we wanted it to be our research findings. And so most, I'm gonna say like 99% of our work is in a Google Doc or ends up in a slide deck. And so what we have we have researchers put their findings documents into a shared Google Drive, which is by far the easiest way in Glean to say, just search this drive. It searches a little bit more. You can tell it exactly what you want it to search and which what information. We have some stuff in Confluence as well, so it can search that. You can tell it exactly what, like where your information is and what to search. For simplicity's sake, imagine all our research findings go into this shared Google Drive, and this custom Glean app that we built just searches that Drive folder. And then spits out the information based on the question, the way we've told it to structure it. So it searches that. Just that is also not enough. Brandy spent a lot of time talking to folks across the company, trying to figure out how they do it, how other people have built the Glean apps. And one of the actually amazing things is that we had been set up really well. And I think Brandy will touch on this a little bit more in sort of like our journey here and why we got, in some ways we got a little lucky, but our reports are pretty structured and templatized. And we found that that really helps the Glean app know what we're talking about and find the right information. And so we make sure researchers, like every research report has an executive summary. We know what questions we answered in the research. And so that helps it also tie back to the questions that maybe a PM somewhere is asking. We also include the primary job to be done that this research might be like helping us understand or uncover more of, what audience it's related to. And some of this, it's sort of, you can imagine it as metadata on the report, but that is like structured and templatized in our findings docs. Next slide. We launched this version of our repository in April. Since then, queried not just 1,000 times, we've had like over 1,000 unique queries, so unique questions asked in just the first 6 months. Like Glean, everyone has access to our repository. We have marketed it and sort of pushed it primarily in our product org. Of the people who've used it, it's been about 30% designers, 20% product managers, and 80% of the users are UX researchers. That's very much in line we are hoping to reach with this. When we talk about use cases, you'll get a little bit of a glimpse as to what we're solving for. But we've also seen engineers use it, marketers, product marketing managers, data scientists. That one makes me super happy because I love working with them. And people love it. Like someone even told us last month, it changed their life. which, it's great feedback to hear. It's also given researchers so much time back. Like, we used to get pinged all the time with questions like, what do we know about job seekers? And as you can imagine, LinkedIn knows a ton about job seekers. And so now what happens is a PM can go to our Insights Hub, ask a question, get a summary of what we know, find out where to dig in, and they still will often go to a researcher, but ask just much more thoughtful, deeper questions, which is great. Also, in whether or not to even consider conducting new research, we've seen just much deep, just one level deeper than just I don't know, and I want this custom study done for me. So what I've shown you so far might feel like we designed for it, and this was all planned, but it's actually been a long journey. We thought when we decided we wanted to give this talk, it had been 4 years. Brandy's actually going to take you back 6 years to what it was like at LinkedIn then.
Awesome. Thank you, Marika. So just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Brandy Am. I am a research program manager here at LinkedIn on the user experience research team. I've been with LinkedIn for about 6 years. It'll be 6 years in December. I started as a research coordinator, actually, and I've done everything from recruitment to data governance, tools and infrastructure. So really just lived my life in the operations world. My charter currently covers high priority initiatives, so making sure that I'm enabling operational processes for high priority initiatives across our UX organization, and currently working on some really cool stuff. I know that Marika kind of explained, the work that we're doing, but one of the most interesting areas that I'm currently working on is our self-serve insights program, which includes our insights repository. And that's what I'll go into today and talk a little bit about our journey and where we've been with our insights repository. So just to get into that, we'll start way back in 2018. So even before I started here at LinkedIn, we were just a small little research organization. I think when I started, we had about I say small now, only compared to what we have currently. But I think we had between around 15 researchers at this point, maybe a little bit more. And I joined as a research coordinator. One of our main problems that we were facing at the time is that we had so much different work in so many different areas. We were a small organization. We had been doing research for about 3 to 4 years at this point, and we were starting to collect quite a bit of assets and research data, and we really needed to make sure that we were looking for a way to organize this. So at the time we were looking for that way to organize the work, and we had the work in various documents. We had work in, videos over here, documents over there. So we just really needed a way to track this across the organization. So really our first use case overall wasn't necessarily an insights repository, but more of a project tracking solution and a research assets library. So our goal at this point was to build processes for streaming our UXR work and also storing assets. Additionally, we needed a way to manage projects and be able to see kind of what we were doing across the organization. Operationally, we needed to manage things like budget and logistics and all of that. But our UXR leaders were also starting to recognize that we really just needed to be able to see the work that we were doing. Airtable also, I say this, we did a full tool exploration just as any operations team would do. We ultimately landed on Airtable, which if you haven't used it, it's a great project tracking tool. We actually still use it to this day. And the great thing about Airtable is it's given us a way to organize a lot of this data, a lot of these records, and a lot of the logistical things that we face with research. So like I said before, budgeting, how the life of a research project might go. It helps to inform things like prioritization and planning. So as we go into these conversations, we really know, exactly what we'll need for these projects. So like I said, at the beginning, our insights repository really more functioned as just a place for us to store our research. So more of our asset storage. And then one of the biggest challenges that we ran into with our Airtable is it's great for project tracking. It's great to get such an immense amount of data about our projects, but what it doesn't quite do very well is it's very hard to connect the dots across different lines of business. So we started to recognize that we have all this amazing work. We want to influence our strategy and our vision, but it was really hard for us to understand kind of some of those central themes and some of those patterns that we were seeing across different populations and surfaces. So So we had gone on with Airtable, great tool that we're using, but we're starting to recognize at this point around 2021 that it wasn't quite functioning in, the way that we really needed. So we started to explore new tools. We had identified the need for a tool outside of our outside of asset storage. And then we wanted to also, like I said before, identify some of those patterns and themes across our work and start to look at our work as more of a holistic, in a holistic sense. And additionally, we, around 2022, we wanted to make sure as well that we were able to share some of that work. As said previously, Airtable is a tool that we use for project tracking, but not everybody has access to that tool. So we wanted to be able to find a tool where we can allow for more discovery. We can allow for folks to be able to actually go in and look through our research. Additionally, at this time, we recognized that, as most of you know, organizing our work, it's complex. There's so many different, things that you have to consider. And we started to look into hiring a research librarian to be able to do that work for us. So kind of at the same time that we started to explore new research repository tools, we also started to bring on a librarian who was going to help us focus on some of those administrative workflows and templates, but also start to develop a taxonomy that would give us a foundation for what we have right now. So in 2021, we onboarded our tool Enjoy HQ. We brought on this research librarian, and they spent about a year really building up this repository. It was not something that was done overnight. It was not something that was easy by any means. It took a lot of work, a lot of time for our librarian to get everything organized. Like Marika had said previously, we have things in Google Docs, Slides, Confluence, SharePoint, all over the place, and we really needed to get that into one tool. So just kind of honing in on the fact that this wasn't something that was done overnight. It wasn't something that was done easily, but we fortunately had this amazing librarian who helped us to organize all of our work, organize our structure, and get us into Enjoy HQ. So going from 2022 to 2023, as we all know, things change very quickly. And if you didn't already know this, Enjoy HQ were bought by, I think it was User Testing and User Zoom. So all of those platforms came together. So this was all at one point coming together. And we were also, I'm sure most of you remember kind of the 2023 AI started to become this big word, right? We're all starting to think, okay, AI is coming. It's, it can be really influential. How do we use AI in our products? Around this time, we were also starting to think, how can we use AI internally to be able to optimize some of our operational processes as well. So what we're beginning to recognize is that Enjoy HQ, with their merging with User Zoom and User Testing, their product roadmap wasn't quite aligning with our long-term vision of what we wanted our insights repository to look like. And so we started to just do a light exploration around, what else can we do? Like, is there another tool that we might be able to use? And then also at the same time, kind of looking into maybe some AI capabilities that we might have for some of these tools. And so that brings us to, that brings us to managing the slide deck here. 2024, I would say more this is around end of 2023 here. Marika actually and our colleague Kevin, they reached out to someone internally who was exploring this tool that we had heard about called Glean. This was an internal tool that our engineering team was using at the time, and they were testing out this tool. We didn't quite have access to it yet, so Marika and Kevin made some connections. We were able to get access to this tool, and we started to explore Glean itself and what it could do for us. Something that was also happening around this time, 2023, 2024, we all know, and I think they mentioned this at the beginning, it was a bit of a tumultuous time for the industry, right? We're having, lots of different things that were happening. And one thing that we noticed internally as well was that we have a ton of work that we're doing as a team, but we're not able to actually handle all of that work. We have a small team. We want to make sure that the work that we're doing is really impactful. So we started having a lot of conversations around how do we evangelize and democratize this research that we have, and how do we make sure that the research that we have that we've done since 2015 is easily and readily available for the teams that want to access it. So we're not, like Marika said, chasing down this research. We're not spending all this time trying to get things for folks. They're really able to do that on their own. And this is kind of where, so we had the AI piece, we had Enjoy HQ kind of go in a different direction, and we wanted to democratize and evangelize our research. And that's kind of where we came to a head with Glean. And it was a fast process too. I'll say, I think we went from Enjoy HQ to Glean in 3 weeks. So, which is, as some of you who have organized all of this, it was a gargantuan effort, but luckily we were able to get over, move everything over into Glean. And one thing I want to say about that is the reason that we were able to do that so quickly is because of the foundations that we've built over time. So we had all of our work in Airtable. We had been tracking our work since 2018. We had been, backtracking as well. We had work. We had everything in Enjoy HQ that we can move quickly over into Glean. So that was why, that was a pretty, I wouldn't say easy transition, but quick transition. So just want to highlight something really quick that I know we talk about, we have these tools and kind of this journey, but one thing that I really want to highlight here is that we really embarked on this exciting journey that highlights years and years of dedication. The entire time I've been here, actually, at LinkedIn has been around various things, but one of the main questions has always been around this research repository and this insights repository. And so we've had these years. We now have this complex and pretty innovative insights repository, but our journey has been about creating a foundation for our team that empowers our team and drives that organizational success. So this effort that we've put in has really gone beyond just data collection. It's about building a solid foundation of project tracking and research knowledge that reflects the hard work that our team is doing. And we started with some of these foundational building blocks. We engaged in a lot of collaboration, a lot of exploration. As you can see here, 2018, we've been exploring, and we still continue to explore. We're still continuing to iterate on the repository that we have. But this process overall, it deepened our understanding of what we're doing here at LinkedIn as far as our research methodologies and the type of research that we engage in. And we decided, through all of this, that we're not actually just looking for a one-size-fits-all repository. We actually want to build a system of research. So we're not seeking the one-size-fits-all solution. We've intentionally actually separated these out. We have our project tracking, which gives us a robust amount of data to be able to understand what we're doing here at LinkedIn, but it also helps us to understand the resources that we need, and even tooling and things of that nature. And then we have our separate insights repository, and with these together, we've built this system, and it operates as a pretty well-oiled system where each component kind of comes together to provide this holistic view of our business. And, through this, we can actually gain a unique perspective on, how we want to drive our strategy and our vision with our data. So again, just to kind of hone in, our journey really has been about creating a foundation, a solid operational foundation so that we can drive our success. And through this, additionally through this exploration, we've also been able to identify what our use cases are, and better understand what our use cases are so that we can help our users, which are the designers and PMs. So I'm going to go into some of our use cases, and then I'll pass back to Marika, and she's going to talk to some of the challenges and the limitations that we still face here. So what are our current use cases? So our top use case right now is that we really want this to be a starting point for discovery for our PMs and our designers. So say you are you can be a new PM or you can be a PM that's been here for a long time, and you're starting at that project. And, mentioned before, job seeker is a huge population that we focus on. You want to know everything there is about job seekers before you get started on your project. So, you can really inform some of those early stage product decisions. So all of our knowledge all knowledge of an audience and a product area is easily accessible in this repository. All they have to go in and say, tell me what I need to know about job seekers, and it'll pull out most of what we have. So it really gives them a place to start with their projects and deeply understand their product and their audiences that they'll be focusing on for this project. And then on top of that, our second use case is we want to also build on the existing knowledge that they already have. So we have done, like I said, I think, 2015? That's 9 years of research. And that's just a lot of research that we've already done. And our partners are requesting research from us often very quickly, kind of as they're thinking of it. And we want to make sure that they're independently ensuring that their requests are built on previous research that we've done. So our goal is to add new insights to our knowledge base rather than doing some of that duplicative work. As an operations person, I don't want to be doing the same project over and over again. We want to make sure that, the time and the resources that we invest in this knowledge, we can continue to use that over time. So we, one of our big use cases is that we are, building on that existing knowledge. And then last, and I think this is a use case that is pretty universal across all research or all insights repositories, is a knowledge management space. So like I had said before, Airtable is more of a kind of a database, right? Our insights actually aren't in Airtable. They're in Google Documents. They're in, SharePoint sites, things of that nature. And so they're not visible there, but they're not also accessible to people outside of our organization. Airtable is just a tool that we use within design. And so what this has done is we're able to put all of our insights into one space, and it stores all of our insights, and it kind of gives us that, or not kind of, it gives us that single source of truth. So that our, people can access that and they can continue to access our insights. So just to kind of go through those again, we want this to be a starting point for discovery, for people to just get started with their projects, building on existing knowledge, because we want our partners to verify their research and also not doing duplicative work. And then lastly, knowledge management, just a centralized place for us to manage all of this, years and years of work that we've been doing. So with that, we still have quite a few challenges that we're facing. This is not, again, a solution that has solved every problem that we have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it back to Marika, and she's going to talk about some of those, current challenges that we're still facing and how we're thinking through those.
Thanks, Brandy. Yeah, we really wanted to make sure that we shared the use cases we're solving for to help you understand why this solution works for us. And if you go to the next slide, I'm going to walk through some existing challenges, but also ask questions, because a lot of these are things we would love to talk to you about, and it's stuff that we're thinking through and struggling with. The first one is just increasing engagement. So I mentioned the breakdown of the people who have used the Insights Hub. It has only been 6 months, but only about 25% of our design team and only about 5% of the product management org have used it. And we know we want more of them to try it. Brandy and a researcher on my team, Emily, ran a series of feedback sessions this summer with both users and non-users of our Insights Hub. And 3 things that we heard from that we want to do more of: educating people on how to use it. This is true for any conversational UI. Is people sort of struggling, what kinds of questions can I ask? How do I ask it? Incorporating even more team and company context, making this app that we built a little smarter in how the company thinks, is a super interesting one, and tying the right research to the right sort of priorities. Imagine actually putting in, what if you're I'm working on this project, what do I need to know? It's not a kind of thing that the Insights Hub can do now. And then we want to also make it clear, we want the app to be a little smarter in saying, I don't know. It's not very good at being like, I don't know the answer to that question. And we'd rather be like, oh, actually, that's a gap in our knowledge and we should go do more research because that's ultimately what we want to do more of. The next one is this version of our repository does not solve for exploration well. So imagine walking into a library and only getting to use their online catalog. So you can come in, you see, like, you know that there are shelves with books, but you're only allowed to sit down at the computer and search. It's really hard to like know what to search for. And I actually think there's tremendous value in just getting to browse and see. And I actually think Enjoy HQ did this really, really well. We just decided that that wasn't one of our top use cases. I don't have a solution to this one and would love to hear how others are thinking about this. I've talked to our data science team about this too, because they have, they've also created some self-service tools in the past year to help people understand like the usage of our product, and also struggle with sometimes some of the similar, like you really have to like think like a researcher already, and it's not, it was really fun before to sort of just be able to like, oh, I didn't know we knew that, or like that sparks something for someone and that like leads to another question. Next challenge we're facing is that we have been very focused on our stakeholders and helping designers and product managers leverage what we know, because it like extends the shelf life of our research, right? Instead of just the research working for that project team, now our research lives on for many years. Researchers do use the Insights Hub. It's great when researchers, our researchers are not embedded on a product team, and so they do switch context, ideally not too often, but it happens and they want to catch up on sort of what do we already know about this, or sometimes there's like crossover between projects and it's really good to also catch them up, like the same use cases Brandy solved for. But researchers think differently and want different stuff, and sometimes you notice the output doesn't work perfectly for researchers, and so like how Glean works is great. It helps you find the right research to go to. It feels also really silly to have a second bot that's for researchers that structures the output differently, but sometimes like all researchers kind of want, like they want the list of the research, which you can get in Airtable, but they want a summary. So this is another one we don't have a solution for. It's not perfect for what our research team needs, and it's something we definitely want to also solve for in the next year. And then the last one is the most future looking and is exciting and scary at the same time. This also came out of our feedback we heard this summer, but also something we just ourselves care about, is that we have so many different insights functions at the company, and they all contribute to a holistic view of like what is going on in our product, what are our opportunities, how do we make LinkedIn better. I believe as a researcher that the best research is done together with other insights functions. I love when we can come together and present recommendations together to a product manager. So why shouldn't a research repository do the same? There's a little bit more of a like hesitation to, so one of the ideas and options we have is we could just pool all our findings, right? It's like, let's put all market research, we'll put all data science findings in the same folder as our work and see what our Glean app can do and share from it. And there's a little bit of like, I can tell I have like a little bit of a hesitancy of sort of like giving up on that control of what happens with our information. But I'm also like so excited to see what could come from this. This is also like there's just been some logistical hurdles, like all the work Brandy, and why we wanted to share so much of that with you is that like our work is structured really well, and some other insights functions don't have their work like organized or structured in the same way. As Glean expands its capabilities, this might also change how our information is shared. So this one is really like, I don't know, we're struggling more maybe with like an identity crisis and the sort of just like really wanting to make sure AI can still represent our function well. One we will definitely explore to see what's possible. And with that, we'd love to open it up to questions from all of you. Please connect with us on LinkedIn as well. We're happy to follow up afterwards, but we have time for questions and then time for discussion. We're also going to stick around for the breakout sessions.
Thank you so much, Brandy and Marieke, for sharing this story and these insights. I think it's very interesting for a lot of people here. And also, I think a lot of the challenge this will be recognized by others as well. So for the Q&A session, maybe you want to ask the question yourself. You can raise your hand and I will give you the word. But if you don't want to be on camera, you can also share your question in the Q&A section. You can find it to the right under. But I already see some questions lining up. So maybe Claudia, I can provide you, give you the first option.
I think you guys can hear me now. Thank you, Marike and Brandy, for this wonderful presentation. Really insightful. So I'm Claudia, UX researcher, currently working at Wolters Kluwer. And my biggest question was, you told Marike that you have like very structured research reports with templates. And because I was thinking, how do you get from a research report to insights? Because that's actually, I think, where we are struggling. So we have the research report with the conclusion, but what is the actual insight? So does the system do it itself, or do you guys have also like a template for this?
Super good question. And we're always trying to be better at this. No, we're expecting researchers, like they write their insight in the findings. So it's like both their observations, or it's like the insight, it's the like, what did we, like, what does the team need to know? And then the sort of like supporting evidence of that. It does not, of course, if you're then doing a meta-analysis, Annemarie, yeah, sorry. There's of course, if you're going to then do like a meta-analysis, and if a researcher does a meta-analysis, they would find maybe some like higher order insight. It is not great at doing that, which is part of why, like, if a researcher, like researchers use the repository to find like, oh, everything on a topic, if they're going to go do like they'll do like a meta-analysis of something, and they still have to do some thinking, which is good. I want them to do that, like thinking on it. What this does though, is it summarizes the insights that we put in our findings. So like our reports have the insight in them.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shoma.
Thanks a lot, Marike and Brandy. And this is a question for you all, but also for the rest of the people in the room, if they have, especially the Europeans in the room. How do you all handle data privacy?
That is a great question. We actually internally with LinkedIn, we handle all of our data in accordance with GDPR. So we actually do consider, the EU regulations as we're handling our data. And all of these tools that we use, like, were previously approved by our legal team. So we're definitely not jumping in and yeah, like we go through that whole process. But on top of that, we've done a lot of work over the years to really inform our team on like data privacy and how to ensure that we're making sure that we're not exposing PII. So even in some of these like documents, some of these these insights documents that we put into the Glean repository often are removed like wholly of their PII before they're actually put in there. And then we have a series of systems and processes to make sure that our researchers are ensuring that any of that is cleared out. So it's a consideration that we always have. We're constantly working towards that. And then of course, any new laws and regulations, we just update the processes around those to ensure that the data is being protected. But like I said, we as an internal company, we're a global company. So we want to make sure that we're following even just the strictest of laws, including, our EU laws. And then of course, in California as well, we have quite a few data protection and data privacy laws that we internally follow. So lots of focus around that, especially with the operations team. Again, going back to kind of that foundational, making sure that our processes are set up to ensure that, when we are collecting data, that we're doing so properly. And then we're also, deleting that data when we need to. And Airtable helps a lot with that. As we're tracking through that project, at certain points in the project, it will remind researchers, about their privacy, about the member privacy, about data, and kind of like remind them the proper steps. But it's definitely something that we consider throughout the entire process. And it's something that was like a deep consideration as we're, building out these AI tools.
Thanks. So what I'm hearing is there's a lot of pre-work that gets done, and then by the time it hits the repository and sharing out, you trust that the pre-work has taken care of data privacy already. Okay.
Yeah.
And the finding this one of the benefits, or actually maybe by design, right, is that the repository just search. So Glean can search everything at the company. We actually excluded, like you can also exclude files. And so there's like a moment in time where we have PII that we then delete that information of. That's part of the benefit of having this just be on the like end report. It's like just search the report. At some point, we also thought about even putting in the research brief, but it just muddies the information that the app has that it then is summarizing on. Whereas like the findings are what we wanted to summarize. It's like, this is what we have. This is the knowledge that we have versus all the information that led to it. It's like, doesn't matter who the participants were at that point. We want to know what country we maybe did the research in, but doesn't have any of those details.
Thank you. Anja, can I ask you to ask your question?
Yes, of course. Hey, I'm Anja. I work for Zoe, which is personalized nutrition startup. And I'm making some assumptions now. So LinkedIn, big company, global, probably, I mean, you have research ops, so that's you're millions of miles of steps ahead of where I am. And everything seems to be in place. So my question for you is, if you put yourselves in the shoes of a researcher working in a small startup, do you think this is feasible?
I was like so worried going into this to like alienate all startup. I was where you were. This is the first big company I've been at, the first research ops team I've gone to work with, and it is amazing. It is wonderful. No, we talked about this in the sort of like how we want to show like the sort of effort it takes and work that goes into it. It's absolutely feasible. And in some ways, maybe even more important, right? Because it's like maybe you are a small team and you can't answer everyone's question and do net new research. And so even more important to have, like, I think just having a place for all the research is important. So that it can be found, so that other people can like build on that knowledge that you're creating. Rolling out a tool, like we could have never decided we were going to use Glean ourselves. Like we got really lucky in that sense, where like Glean came, and honestly, the like what Brandy was sort of saying and the connection we made at the company. Kevin, the research manager on my team who had been leading the repository effort, he and I gave a presentation to the whole product org on our repository in Enjoy HQ, something like that. Totally. I mean, you can buy any of the repository tools are a great place to start. I mean, I think all of that is better than not tracking the research you have and not storing it. I think the decision to make is how much time to spend on like pulling out each insight and making that like a thing, right? But just like having a place where the research lives is great. We gave this presentation launching our repository, and one of the PMs who works on internal tools came up to us and said, there has to be a way to like AI power this. He was just like, and committed to like helping us figure out, he's like, this is my job, is to help employees at the company be more efficient. And so that really helped us like dream bigger, right? And like think of what's possible. And so if there is any tool you use, someone, I think when I posted on LinkedIn about this talk, said that they use Copilot. So if there's anything that your company is using already, there's probably ways to create a version of this. Good luck.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question a bit, Anja?
Yeah, it does, because also like, so we're doing something slightly the other way round from what you've done. So we're starting with AI and pulling out insights from data science, and now we're trying to pull out insights from research that we have in certain places, but we can't go to all the places. So it's really, I mean, your talk was really great and helpful because it made me think about things I could consider, but I might actually take you up on the offer to get in touch on LinkedIn and have another chat.
And the other way around, I mean, this is totally right. Like some of this is like where we ended up being when all these tools became available. And so, yeah, I don't necessarily recommend following the same path, right? It's like the technology's evolved. we're also, and at the same time, we're exploring using AI. I mean, this is a whole nother talk that I'm sure Karen is thinking about, but it's like, how do we as researchers use AI tools? Like, how do you have AI help you like pull out interesting insights, or how do you, and it's like, we're also exploring like, how do we as researchers like evolve and change and benefit from this new technology? And then this is just the like, once we still have to document our findings and the outcome of that work, even if it was done in like partnership with AI. And that like final asset is what we're putting in our repository so that other people can like leverage it and sort of like have a conversation with the like knowledge that we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. Thank you.
All right. Next question, Debayana. Sorry if I don't pronounce your name correctly.
The Bayani.
Yeah,
Harry Potter.
sorry, Debayani.
No worries. Hi, so I was working with Philips, not anymore, as a design researcher. And we also have a knowledge ad, let's say. Now I'm not there anymore. So there is a knowledge management tool that's in place, and it's currently being tested. From what I last heard, that they're using AI to sort of, drive the efficiency of the use and maintenance. What I want to know is, when you're building a scalable research repository that specifically leverages AI, how are you balancing, or how do you ensure that you're balancing the need for automation with the preservation of rich qualitative insights that might otherwise be lost or misinterpreted? And what kind of impact can that have on the way that research, or let's say UX research, is valued across LinkedIn's product teams?
Do you want to answer that, Brandy? Okay. It's a super good question, and I have some answers, but not all of them. I so firmly believe that like the questions that we were being asked were taking us away from doing like better new work, and that like what we were spending our time on, just helping people find the past research reports, was distracting us from actually just doing really valuable new work. And so there's so much that we gain from just not having to be the ones that like look in Airtable for a PM and say, here's all the past research. Or we were spending time, researchers on the team spending hours creating a summary of what we learned. And like the AI is really good at just the summary of what we have learned. This is like one way we're trying to mitigate it, is in just how we controlled. I show you the like structured output is in controlling what it'll say. Like we prevent it from drawing all sorts of conclusions. Like we're actually in some ways, I don't know how, like we're like not letting it go too far in its like recommending new things. Like you could use Glean for that. You can use other AI for that too. And so we're trying to sort of limit it to this, like, we know a lot of stuff. If you want to leverage, like the whole point is hopefully that this is used by people who want to actually leverage our knowledge, not just hope that AI can do their job for them. But it's absolutely, especially as we build onto it and make the app like smarter and do more things, like it should recommend us. One of the questions I keep trying to push it is the like, what are we not, like, what are our knowledge gaps? Like I want it to tell me what we haven't researched and what we don't know. But you could also ask like, what should we build to like grow in Germany, or what should we like, right? And it like doesn't do that today, which is probably good because we haven't answered that question. So it shouldn't start to speculate about it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, to some extent, but I was thinking, what went into understanding that, there's a need for these recommendations that would come to you when you're, looking something up, as opposed to the need for actually keeping the qualitative insights in place that's also reused, and you're not, again, going back and doing the same research. So how do you find, or let's say, what how do you balance that need? So that's something that I want to know, like sort of get a bit more into, because this is the kind of questions that I'm assuming, you know, people up in the, you know, the big boys kind of ask you sometimes. So yeah, what's
I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, like the repository isn't used for recommendations on what to fix in the product or change. It's really on the like, what do we know, like sharing.
Yeah, exactly.
So our qualitative and quantitative research insights, and you can search that and it summarizes that. It's like, tell me what we know, or have we learned anything about, or do we know how such audience does this thing? And it's not, and you'll like in the findings, we'll find the recommendations we've provided, right? But the Insights Hub is not giving recommendations.
Right.
And so that's still where like then the research team comes in. That's like, help us, like now we're like working on this initiative. We like understand what we already know. Now we're still stuck on this. It's like, can you help us identify new ideas, or we have these concepts to explore, and then we can do new research.
Okay, yeah, got that now. All right, yeah, thank you so much for the answer.
Thank you so much for the question. I see we have 4 more questions. I also see that we're almost at 5 o'clock, so I suggest that we do 1 more question and then move to the breakouts, where you can maybe also discuss with people in your breakout. Know that Marieke and Brandy also will be joining the breakout, so maybe you get lucky and have them in your team. And otherwise, share your questions with us in the chat or some other way, and we make sure that we find a way to answer or to keep the discussion going. But then for the last question, Kevin, you are the next in line. So
Martijn, who has a question in our team.
Cool. All right.
Martijn.
Thanks for the presentation. My name is Martijn. I'm a researcher at FedEx. And I was wondering, you mentioned the limitations for a bit. One of them was that it was mainly, so the tool was mainly very good for example, product teams, right, to use, and less so for the researchers, so the research team. I was wondering, could you elaborate a bit more on the limitations there and why it was not so suitable for the researchers?
Yeah, absolutely. Researchers have access to Airtable in a way our product partners and designers intentionally don't. And so as researchers, we're just trying to do different things and answer, like we're in a different place in a project, right? So it's like the way researchers might want to leverage the repository is if they are on a new project. And I mean, it's like similar use cases as I'm talking. I'm like, it's similar use cases, but I feel like researchers want to go deeper and they want the source material. So like they sort of want like, in some ways, like a shorter version. It's like, just tell me if we've done this research before, what that past research study was. And if that person is still here, can I go talk to them and find out how to like either replicate the study or build off of it, or right, like, have we already answered this question? Sometimes we like hear a business question and we're asked to create the research questions for it. And it's like, well, have we done this before? In what way? I think the way we structured it, so the like real limitation is more on how this app outputs the information, and it's like trying to be helpful by summarizing it. And I have found researchers like, just tell me what the research study was, and they just want the like report. And so I think there's sort of like a short version that's like this person still works at and Glean knows this, like the person still works at the company, go talk to your colleague so-and-so who like, this is where they sit. Like I would love Glean to be smarter. It's like, oh, your colleague so-and-so in this office has done this research. Here's the report they did 2 years ago, go talk to them. And it's not set up that way today. And so I find that they're like, I know all the summary, and it like keeps summarizing. It's like every time you ask another question, it gives all these summaries, which is like so helpful if you're not the researcher who has to build another study off of it. And so it's more just a like, oh, I wish we could also, like, I kind of want to make sure that we're also helping researchers out. It's still super helpful. And we have you create like a Slack integration. And so I see researchers also a lot more in Slack. You can ask the question you have of the Insights Hub in Slack. And I see researchers in there all the time asking questions.
Cool, very clear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Marieke, can I ask you to pull back the slide with your challenges on screen? or Brandy? So maybe you can take a small moment to think about these questions, write them down or copy them. I think Debbie will share them in the chat as well. And then we move to the breakout rooms where you can chat with other people who are maybe in the midst of setting up a resource repository, maybe they already have, and you can discuss one of these challenges. We will be back in about 20 minutes and then wrap this session up. For now, very much fun discussing the topic and hope you learn something from the others, but I'm quite sure you will. So here we go.